Getting excited just before crossing the finish line is a recipe for disaster, and these athletes found out the hard way. From Molly Huddle, who lost her gold medal after celebrating too early, to this Moroccan goalkeeper who cost his team the championship thanks to his overconfidence, here are 18 premature celebrations in global sports competition, starting with Laura Garcia-Caro Lorenzo. Competing in the 2024 European Championships was a dream come true for Laura Garcia-Caro. Unfortunately, just seconds before she could snatch that bronze medal and make that dream a reality, she lost it all. The Spanish racewalker was about to reach the finish line with only 2 people ahead of her. Seeing the victory just within her reach, her confidence was at an all-time high, and she raised her hands up in the air for victory. What she didn't realize was that another competitor was gaining up on her fast. In this moment of premature celebration, Lyudmila Ulyanovsk, the racewalker from Ukraine, overtook her in the final 2 meters, snatching the bronze medal at the very last minute.
Oh, and it's dust. Oh my word, she's been caught!
Commenting on the loss after the race, Laura stated, "I am quite disappointed after the 20-kilometer race. The first part of the race I suffered, but I did recover, and in the last 10 meters I thought I had it, but I didn't."
Telling the media, I'm quite disappointed. Yeah, we know that. The first part of the race I suffered, but I did recover, and then in the last 10 meters I thought I had it. I thought I had it.
Laura must have raised her hands thinking she had the medal in the bag, just like Molly Huddle. The 2015 World Championships wasn't Molly's first rodeo. After all, the American long-distance runner held the record in the 5,000 meters set in Monaco back in 2014. However, as she barreled towards the finish line during the 10,000 meters women's final in Beijing, Molly handed her bronze medal to her competitors due to her early celebration. Just a few seconds before she would cross the finish line, Molly raised her hands in jubilation. Unknown to her, Emily Infield was sprinting right behind her toward the finish line while she was slowing down to celebrate.
In the 10,000-meter race, the 30-year-old was on pace to finish third, but an early celebration knocked her from the podium. Molly's teammate Emily Infield beat Huddle right at the finish line.
Once she let her guard down, Infield shouldered her way up, breezing past her and clinching the medal. In her post-match interview, Molly expressed her disappointment because she knew races like these don't come around so often. Considering her age and time spent in the game, this could as well be her last opportunity to compete at the championship. Speaking of overconfidence, no other American athlete embodies this like Noah Lyles. Getting too cocky when the race isn't over is one sure way to lose a medal. For Noah Lyles, though, his confidence was rooted in his track record. As an American professional track and field sprinter, Noah had competed and won several medals in dozens of international competitions. As a matter of fact, he almost broke Usain Bolt's record back in 2022, after finishing the 200-meter sprint in 19.31 seconds. This made him the 3rd fastest man of all time. However, what really made him the talk of the town on social media was when he celebrated too early in the men's 200 meters at the 2024 Paris Olympics. Before the race even started, Noah couldn't hide his cocky attitude, running and jumping in the air while his other competitors just stood by and watched. Although he ended up winning the bronze medal for Team USA, there was nothing stopping him from getting the gold medal if only he didn't let his guard down at the last minute. Silly mistakes like these are not uncommon, though. Another good example is the case of Mato Bues. Starting a race well isn't enough, because in such a highly competitive sport, winners can quickly become losers at the very last. Take Mato Bues, for example. While competing at the Sagunto Triathlon in eastern Spain, Matteo was almost at the finish line. Believing he had won the race, he slowed down, punched the air, and performed a foot trick for the audience. But while he was busy celebrating, Germain's sister was gaining on him. Seeing that Matteo was distracted, Sister ran ahead of him from behind, taking the first position with such a small margin. Not surprisingly, Matteo was embarrassed by the mistake that cost him the race. You could even hear the spectators screaming insults at him for costing his country a gold medal. But sprinters aren't the only ones who get caught up in the moment. Even footballers get overconfident sometimes. Kheed Osri. Penalty kicks are some of the most intense experiences for a goalkeeper. They're unpredictable and can cost you a whole championship within a split second. But what happens when a goalkeeper celebrates a failed penalty too early? Who better to ask than Kheed Osri, a Moroccan goalkeeper who used to play for FAR Rabat. During a final penalty shootout between the top two Morocco's division teams, Maghreb Fez and FAR Rabat, Osri successfully blocked a penalty, which apparently won them the game. Out of excitement, he turned away to celebrate, thinking that was the end. But while he wasn't paying attention, the ball bounced and rolled back into the goalpost. Thanks to this tiny error, FAR Rabat ended up losing the match. The clip would eventually go viral, and people began calling it the craziest penalty score of all time. Obviously, the fans almost ate Osri alive, but this cannot be compared to the backlash received by Nick Young. The Nick Young situation takes us back to a game between the LA Lakers and the New York Knicks back in March 2014. The two teams were playing a regular season game at the Staples Center when Nick Young launched a three-pointer that he thought would go straight into the net. Confident that this was his moment, Young turned his back and started jubilating. Unfortunately, though, the ball hilariously rolled around the rim and bounced out. It didn't take long for the clip to go viral, giving birth to one of the most hilarious basketball memes of all times. You know who wasn't laughing after missing the shot of a lifetime, though? Leon Lett. Every NFL player dreams of making a name for themselves at the Super Bowl. But while some are remembered for their iconic moments, players like Leon Lett make a whole different kind of memory. During the 27th Super Bowl, the Dallas Cowboys were way ahead of the Buffalo Bills when replacement quarterback Frank Reich fumbled the ball. Leon Lett of the Cowboys recovered the ball, ran to the 5-yard line, and lowered the ball. But just before he got to the end zone, Don Beebe of the Bills smacked it out of his hand. Of course, Leon would have scored the goal easily, but he slowed down to celebrate at the 5-yard line. Because of this, he wasn't able to notice when Don Beebe rushed toward him and stripped the ball away from his hand. Thankfully, though, the Cowboys ended up winning the match and walking away with the championship. Not everyone who fumbled a win was given a second chance, though. Case in point. Chaol Juan. Winning a gold medal, standing on the podium in front of millions of fans, that's the dream of every athlete. However, for South Korean skater Chaol Juan, the decision to celebrate a fraction of a second too early before the end of the game cost him and his teammates everything, including an exception from compulsory military service. Military service is compulsory for men in South Korea, which requires almost all able-bodied persons to serve in the army for 18 months by the age of 28. However, this mandatory duty can be waived for some athletes, especially those who win an Olympic or a gold medal in the Asian Games. While these athletes were initially hopeful they would be able to skip the draft, things didn't exactly go as planned. The 27-year-old skater was skating the final leg of the race and approaching the finish line just ahead of his competitor, Taiwan's Hwang Yulin. Believing he had won the gold medal, Juan decided to raise his hands in celebration, even though he'd not crossed the finish line yet. It was in that same moment that Hwang stretched his left leg forward and quickly snatched the position from Jung. As a result, Taiwan clinched the gold medal by just 0.01 second. After the race, Jung apologized for celebrating too early and letting his whole team down. While some mistakes cost the whole country a well-deserved win, others have to swallow their shame alone, just like Ricardo Russo. Burning rubber, racing for the finish line at maximum speed, a motorcycle race seems like the last place you'd want to celebrate too early. But that didn't stop Ricardo Russo, an Italian professional racer, from making this same mistake. Russo was heading into victory at the Mugello track a lap too early, with most of his competitors far behind him. But this error of judgment cost him the 2012 Italian CIV Championship race. At first, Russo was leading the rest of the field by 3 bike lengths, heading into the final lap of the race, but he had obviously forgotten the number of laps in the race. While he began to celebrate thinking the race was over, the rest of the competitors flew past him to the final lap of the race. For a while, he was a little confused as to why everyone else had not followed his lead and slowed down as he did at the end of the race. Instead of pumping the gas, he was pumping his fist wildly and saluting the crowd while he stood on the pegs of the bike. Moments later, though, he came to his senses, realized his error, and held his helmet on his head in regret. By the time he rejoined the race, it was already too late. Instead of going home with a victory, Russo ended up in 14th place, while Alessandro Nocco cruised to the most unexpected of victories. From the tracks to the court, a momentary lapse in judgment can cost athletes everything they've worked for since the start of the season. A good example is Saboa Zagreb. We've seen players getting clowned on for celebrating too early, but what about when the entire team gets too caught up in their success that they end up losing? This was the fate of Croatian basketball team Saboa Zagreb in the NLB championship game against Serbian team KK Partizan. After a pair of missed free throws from Partizan, Saboa raced up the court and nailed a 3-pointer from the baseline to take a 1-point lead. Although there were still 0.6 seconds left, Saboa celebrated on the court thinking the game was over and they had won. But the game was not over until the referee said it was. While the team was celebrating, Dusan Kekman of Partizan heaved a 75-footer at the last minute and banked it in for an unbelievable victory for his team. It was an incredible moment for the losing team as they scored a winning 3 points with only 0.6 seconds left in the game, all while the other team was busy celebrating their premature victory. This was a pretty disgraceful loss for the team, and it kinda reminds us of Tangi Pipit. Pipit engraved his name into athletic history back in 2015, not for his victory, but for his dramatic early celebration. Tangi Pipit is a young athlete from the University of Oregon who made his mark in the 3,000 meters steeplechase. However, he got in over his head while leading in the final 100 meters and lost everything. Overwhelmed by the feeling of victory, Pipit began waving to the crowd just before crossing the finish line. Unfortunately, while Pipit was basking in the joy of victory, Washington University's Mellon Simon came from behind him with a stunning sprint. He overtook Pipit and finished the race just seconds ahead of Pipit. This moment left spectators and global television viewers in disbelief. After the runner realized what had happened, he smacked himself on the ground in exhaustion and disappointment, while the victorious Simon tried to console him. The clip of Pipit's early celebration quickly went viral, making him the subject of sports shows on ESPN. People called him foolish, annoying, and arrogant, but no one could really feel the pain like he did. Pretty sure he wouldn't repeat the same mistake again, or he'd end up like Jun Woo. Imagine savoring the sweet taste of victory, and losing is just because someone got carried away too early. This is the story of Jun Woo. Jun Woo is a South Korean professional baseball player for the Lada Giants of the Korea Baseball Organization. Back in 2013, he represented the South Korean national baseball team at the World Baseball Classic. But that's not where this huge goof-up happened. That was during the Korean Professional Baseball League game between the Lada Giants and NC Dinos. The Dinos were up 6-4 in the 9th when Giants outfielder Jun Woo got into his Superman mode. Jun Woo took a slow, hanging breaking ball and smashed it to the left side of the field. He totally thought it was gone, so he did a bat flip. He then pointed to his teammates in the dugout and began his home run dash. Unfortunately, he was caught unaware. The ball was snatched by the left fielder, and the stunned Jun Woo was left stranded and confused about what just happened. Losses like these aren't usually carried by a team, though. Sometimes athletes have to bear the consequences of their pride alone. Take, for example, Alex Kavante. Rolling closer and closer to his dream at the World Roller Speed Skating Championships in Antioquia, Colombian skater Alex Kavante thought he had won the game. Unfortunately, he threw it all away by his own hands. Before the match even began, Kavante was a top candidate to win the final of the 20,000 meters elimination for men in the junior edition. And as he cruised through the final few meters, he seemed to be heading for victory. Seeing that no one could catch up to him, he started showing off, and in the process, accidentally let his guard down. But while he slowed down and threw his fist in the air, South Korean Sang Chaol Lee noticed that the gap between him and Kavante was not as big as he thought, so he rushed past Kavante in the last meter of the race and took the first position from him. Kavante initially didn't notice his opponent flying past him, save for the sudden silence from the crowd and the sound of some hysterical narrators. By the time he realized what his pride had cost him, it was already too late. Probably the worst way to learn a lesson in humility, like this next two athletes also had to learn. But before we go on with the rest of the video, here's our subscribers' pick for today. The camera accidentally recorded the athletes' embarrassing actions, attracting major backlash from fans around the world. The Greek triple jumper, Paraskevi Vula Papatristou, was seen touching herself inappropriately while on the pitch, and the image is currently breaking the internet. But is this image real? A lot of people don't seem to believe so. Some claim the picture was manipulated to tarnish her reputation in response to her racism controversy. With such a huge scandal surrounding the athlete, it's hard to determine what is true and what isn't. As always, feel free to share your thoughts on this image with us in the comments section below. Now, let's get back to more embarrassing stories. Stefan, Remy Arac, and Charlie Merl. The story takes us to June 18, 2021, at the Grand Prix Saint-Symphorien-sur-Coise cycling race in France. Remy Arac and Charlie Merl were riding for the EC Saint-Étienne-Loire Club. At first, it appeared they'd both easily left the rest of their competitors behind. Even the fourth-placed rider was 4 minutes away at the time. With their eyes glued to the finish line, they both decided to celebrate their upcoming win in an arm-in-arm celebration across the line together. Suddenly, the unexpected happened. Simon Rouet, a 19-year-old VC Villefranche-Beaujolais rider who had been cycling tirelessly behind them, met them on the way and overtook them to cross the finish line first. Although both cyclists still got a place on the podium, you could see the disappointment in their faces as they realized they could have been champions. You know who else almost became a champion? Megan Rutledge. What happens when a near win gets knocked over by an unfortunate accident? This is the story of Megan Rutledge, a young female motorcycle racer from Australia. Megan was comfortably leading the women's Moto X 12-lap race at the X Games in Los Angeles on that fateful day. But her excitement got the best of her as she neared the final corner. Pumping her fist right before a jump, Megan believed she was celebrating a sure victory. Unfortunately, though, by taking her hand off the bike, she lost control, and as the bike nosedived, she landed awkwardly to the ground, allowing her rival to steal the lead. At the end of the day, her arch-rival Vicky Golden eventually took the gold for the third time in a row, while a clearly deflated Rutledge was left with mascara-stained tears streaming down her face. After the race, Rutledge, who went home with the silver medal, admitted that her overconfidence had been her downfall, but said she had learned from her big mistake. "I was out there leading. I'm really young. I've never led an X Games before. I celebrated a bit too early and made a mistake, unfortunately, which gave Vicky Golden an opening to take first again," the Australian rider told ESPN. But do people really learn from their mistakes, though? You'd have to ask. Sven Kramer. Before Sven Kramer retired from the game, the Dutch long-track speed skater won 9 World All-Round Championships, as well as 10 European All-Round Championships. Generally, there are not many rules for Olympic speed skating. The only goal is to simply get around the rink as quickly as possible. The only rule every athlete must keep in mind, though, is the two-lane rule. Basically, there are only two lanes on the speed skating track, and you have to skate one lap in one lane and then the next lap in the other. While this may sound like a simple rule, breaching it could cost you a lot. This was especially true during the 2010 Vancouver Winter Olympics. While competing in the men's 10,000-meter final, Sven Kramer from the Netherlands was considered a prominent contender for the championship. But unfortunately, a dramatic and unfortunate incident robbed him of his well-deserved victory. Kramer, a three-time world champion, six-time European champion, and former world record holder in the 10,000 meters, was nicknamed the King of Long Distances in the speed skating community. He was known to always put on an impressive performance, breaking the world record with amazing speed. However, during the final lap, a serious mistake occurred while he was trying to switch lanes at the 6,800-meter mark. According to speed skating rules, Kramer was supposed to move to the outside lane, but in a moment of confusion, his coach convinced him to switch to the wrong lane. Under intense pressure from his coach, Kramer switched to the inside lane. Sadly, this meant that he had committed a lane violation, which was grounds for disqualification. Although he finished the race with an impressive time and celebrated his victory, this simple mistake from his coach voided his achievement. At the end of the competition, the gold medal was awarded to South Korea's Lee San. Obviously, Kramer was furious at this heartbreaking news. But despite losing the gold medal to this mistake, he chose to forgive his coach. He assured the media that their coach-athlete relationship would not be affected by this incident, and emphasized that their past victories together outweighed this one mistake. Even though he didn't win the gold in this event, Kramer's attitude and understanding earned him widespread respect, and his career continued to shine with 21 World Championship medals, proving his talent and passion for speed skating. But while Kramer could blame his coach for his loss, not everyone had someone to throw the blame on. Chen Yibing. On the 31st of July, 2024, at the Paris Olympic men's gymnastics final, the Chinese men's gymnastics team were forced to surrender the gold medal to their Japanese counterparts. However, something strange happened before then. You see, the gymnastics competition features 6 apparatuses, which include the floor exercise, pommel horse, rings, vault, parallel bars, and horizontal bar. As part of the competition, each team was required to send 3 participants, and the team with the highest overall score in all the apparatus would emerge as the winner. While China initially fell behind Japan in the overall score after the floor exercise, they managed to take the lead during the pommel horse, rings, and parallel bars events. Notably, Chinese gymnasts Liu Yang and Zhu Jingyuan delivered impressive performances on the rings and parallel bars, securing scores of 15.5 and 16.0 respectively, which placed them on the leading edge. In the middle of the intense competition, Chen Yibing, a notable figure in gymnastics and a 3-time Olympic gold medalist, took to Weibo, a popular social media platform, to prematurely celebrate the Chinese team's victory. In his statement, he said, "Returning to the top after 12 years. Congratulations. I am proud of my younger teammates. There will likely be more gold medals to come." His post raised the hope of many people. However, on the other end, fate had a different plan for the Chinese team, as no one could have predicted what happened next. In the final round of the horizontal bar event, Su Wei of the Chinese team made 2 significant errors, which lowered his score and consequently affected his team. At the end of the event, the Chinese team was overtaken by the Japanese team, which was initially in 5th place and had to settle for the silver medal. The US team, on the other hand, took the bronze medal. In the face of this disappointing and unexpected result, Chen Yibing bravely had to tender an apology with another social media post saying, "I really didn't expect this, as I sincerely wanted to see the Chinese men's team to win the championship." He also made it clear that the silver medal was still an achievement to be celebrated and that gymnastics is a challenging and high-risk sport where every detail of the game can determine ultimate success or failure at the end of the game. Admittedly, Yibing should have waited for the game to be over before jubilating online. But about athletes who mock their opponents and end up regretting it, you know who comes to mind? Freddy Spencer Burns. Victory can be intoxicating, but making fun of your opponent before you fully secure the victory is just a recipe for embarrassment. Such was the case with Freddy Spencer Burns, an English professional rugby union player who plays fly half for Super Rugby side Highlanders. Burns played over 100 times for Gloucester between the years 2007 and 2014, and over 100 times for Leicester Tigers as well. During the course of his career, he also represented Bath in Premiership Rugby. But the game that secured him a place on this list was against Toulouse in the Heineken Champions Cup. Burns was so devastated by this defeat that he described it as an ultimate low. As the story goes, Burns missed a 74th-minute penalty from the front of the posts, and then blew a try barely 60 seconds later after breaking clear and crossing the Toulouse line. Under pressure from Maxime Medard, he lost control of the ball. Without wasting time, Medard immediately snatched the ball from him. Before all that happened, though, Burns was seen putting on a dramatic show by blowing a kiss, as he appeared to enjoy an unopposed run-in. But it all went horribly wrong as he failed to touch down and was left with an uphill struggle to qualify from a group that also includes Champions Cup holders, Leinster. Burns later tweeted, "Love this sport for the highs and the lows. Today was an ultimate low and a mistake I'll learn from. I'll continue to give my best as I always do. Lastly, just apologies to the boys and the supporters for the mistake. I'll bounce back. Thanks for the support." Thank you for watching. See you in our next video.